Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, beloved brothers and sisters. Continuing in our discussion in these sacred days of Dhul-Hijjah on our beloved forefather, prophet and messenger Abraham, peace and blessings be upon him. Abraham was a critical thinker. He was an intellectual, spiritual individual. And in the process of his journey, he was not shy to challenge authority. We read in Surah Al-Anbiya when Abraham asks his own father and the elders amongst his community, why are they worshiping these idols? And they responded, قَالُوا وَجَدْنَا آبَاءَنَا لَهَا عَابِدِينَ. We found our forefathers worshiping them, meaning this is our ways, this is the ways of our community, this is the way of our people. قَالَ لَقَدْ كُنْتُمْ أَنْتُمْ وَآبَاؤُكُمْ فِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. The young Abraham, some said he was a teenager, that he responded to them saying, surely you and your forefathers were all clearly misguided. Now, of course, Abraham is not being rude. He is clarifying a fact that is based upon observable reality, that these statues that you have made cannot be gods. You cannot be worshiping them. It's simply absurd. And so he's stating a very clear, blunt fact in order to challenge them to think. And so this was something that he was known for in multiple situations in his life. We all know the story of him questioning the divinity of the stars, of the moon, of the sun. And he wanted to show them that the creations are created because they exist in a fluctuation. They move from here to there. Now it appears they're not there. And so all of these things he's showing them do not relate to a creator or an all-powerful deity that should be worshipped. There's no reason to believe they should be worshipped. And so Abraham definitely himself was not worshiping those entities because the Quran emphasizes at least 10 times, وَمَا كَانَ مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. Many times over and over, he never was a polytheist. So we see that right at the end of that story, he makes the clear case to them in Surah Al-An'am, verse number 75, verse number 79. إني وجهت وجهي للذي فطر السماوات والأرض حنيفا وما أنا من المشركين. So it says, I have directed myself in sincere worship to the one who created everything in the heavens and the earth as a pure monotheist who is not going to be allowed, I'm not going to allow my environment, the people around me, to change my thoughts about this, no matter how many of them believe such and such. He's challenging the fact that everybody says these are gods. Everybody, the most intellectual, the most respected and noble elders of his society are worshiping these things. Hanifa, it means one who will not accept, no matter how many or who is teaching falsehood, we will never go along with it. We will only follow what is proven to be true, what fits with our natural inclination. وَمَا أَنَا مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. And I would never be a polytheist. So we see in the end of that story, وَتِلْكَ حُجَّتُنَا آتَيْنَاهَا إِبْرَاهِيمَ عَلَىٰ قَوْمِهِ, that this is the proof that we gave Abraham to his people. Because we know that he challenged them again whenever they left for whatever their holiday celebration, and he took the axe and destroyed all of the smaller idols and then put the axe with the larger idol, making it look like he got jealous and wanted to prove his supreme authority by destroying all of those. And interestingly enough, they all naturally concluded right by looking at it that someone must have done this because they know good and well that that idol cannot do anything on its own. It has no abilities. And so they came to the conclusion, even though they hated it, even though he pulled it out of them in a very radical way, but they came to realize the truth. And so Allah says, نَرْفَعُ دَرَجَاتٍ مَّن نَشَاءُ, that we raise in status those who we will. And that goes back to the verse that we find in Surah Al-Mumtahana. He says, يَرْفَعِ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنكُمْ وَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ دَرَجَاتٍ, that God will raise those in faith who have been given knowledge in degrees above others. Meaning, if you have faith and you don't have much knowledge, your status can't grow. But if you have more knowledge in complement to your faith, then you will be raised above others through it. We see through the scholarly tradition where they interpreted this story where Abraham challenged them about the star and the moon and the sun. And the scholars looked at it with a deep analysis, and they saw it as the evidence for the uncaused cause. They explained that things we perceive, they go through changes like movement and rest. And so Abraham was highlighting that philosophical fact to them. And that if it goes through movement and rest, and if it comes into being and it can wither away, then it must be created and it is not eternal. Then they concluded, they took it the next logical step, that these functions and meanings that have purpose, that things have, must have been given to them by one that has intelligence to give them that purpose. And that is how we arrive at our belief in God, who originated these bodies along with their meanings and purposes. So the scholars extracted from this engagement of Abraham this deep philosophical analysis that proves the oneness of God, that proves the uncreated cause of all causes. There was a great scholar named Fakhruddin al-Razi who made a multi-volume, amazing analysis of the Quran called it Tafsir al-Kabir, the giant commentary. He said this incident, the way Abraham proves his point, proves that God cannot have a body or a direction or be limited by space. So he's bringing his understanding of the philosophy from the ayahs in the Quran. Some people have imagined that these scholars who did this were somehow influenced by Greek thought. Maybe he studied Greek thought, but if you look at how he's commenting on the verse, he's extracting directly from the verse how we should understand the nature of God. So we see the same thing in the story of Abraham after they tried to burn him alive, and then he went to the king to challenge the king. أَلَمْ تَرَ إِلَى الَّذِي حَاجَّ إِبْرَاهِيمَ فِي رَبِّهِ أَنْ آتَاهُ اللَّهُ الْمُلْكَ. That, do you know the story of when Abraham went and challenged the king? And then the king thought, well, I have all of the power. And so who is this Abraham? So Abraham said, my Lord, who I am sent to give his message, is the one who gives life and causes death. So the king naturally said, oh yeah, I'm the one that does that. I give life. So you can let that person in the jail free and give them wealth. That person, kill them. And then they did what they said. See, I'm giving life and I'm giving death. So Abraham could have easily hammered the point that God allowed you to do that and so forth and so on. But what he did was he went rationally and logically to think of something that this king could never say he did. He said, my Lord is the one that causes the sun to come up in the east. So how about you cause the sun to come up from the west? And then he was completely at a loss for words. He was an intellectual in his spirituality. He was proving his point, looking at the bigger picture of how to make my point better. So this is the beauty of Abraham in multiple angles. Similarly, Abraham himself was struggling with the notion of a dead body withering away to bones. How is it going to become a body and walk and move around again, as we read and as we know about the day of judgment and resurrection? So he asks God, وَإِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ رَبِّ أَرِنِي كَيْفَ تُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى. My Lord, show me how you're going to give life to a dead being. He says, أَوَلَمْ تُؤْمِنْ. Aren't you a believer? He says, yeah, but I'm looking for a sense of contentment in my heart that I understand this point. Of course he's a believer, but he's trying to understand deeply. So he's questioning God to explain him better how he can understand the nature of resurrection. So of course, after God told him to take these birds and cut them up and put them on the different mountains, and then called them, and here they come back again, what he realized is there are certain questions that are beyond my capacity to understand. But it didn't stop him from asking and being curious and seeking to intellectualize his understanding of faith and how he's going to be able to communicate that faith. Abraham, peace and blessings be upon him, was the spiritual intellectual. He wasn't shy to ask tough questions. He wasn't shy to ask a tough question to the ultimate authority of all. As followers of Abraham, we must be those intellectual, spiritual beings who are spiritual about the way we study what we study in the world. And we're intellectual about our spirituality and our religiosity. And the more we go back to that beautiful way of thinking that was strong in many parts of our ummah for many centuries, then we will be raised in status as Abraham has been raised in status over all of humanity. Jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.